Hello and good afternoon to you. Welcome once again to Gordon's Garden in the heart of Perthshire, and we're being graced as well today with that glorious sun shining down, which will probably be fairly short-lived, but never mind. Anyway, I thought I would bring to your notice another rotavator today, something very much more modern than the Meritiller. And this is a Japanese-made machine by Honda, and obviously that name speaks for itself, really and truly. One of the beautiful things about this machine is that it's very versatile in that it's very light and easy to work, and surprisingly enough it doesn't jump about an awful lot, even on very stony ground, which this is. Also, if you have an allotment or you have a piece of ground that's quite a bit away from your home, from a safety security point of view, you can actually lift this machine into the boot of your car, and that's quite useful. That's a handy thing, and the ladies could also manage that without much bother either. Anyway, that's quite good. It's petrol driven, Honda engine. It's quite simple to operate. I've only had this machine for about 12 months, and up until now it's been going quite well. It's not given me any bother at all. They're roughly, this particular model is 110. It's called 110, the model FG 110. They're not coming up for sale much on the internet because they've only been on the go a few years, and so they're costing roughly, I think roughly new, they're about fully £400, and so if they were coming up for sale they would probably be fetching fairly strong money second hand. Anyway, we'll give a little demonstration, let you see what it can do. Let me have a look. That's it on there. And that's on there. It's got an automatic clutch on it, which means to say it doesn't move forward until you start to rev the engine up. I've already been up here once, and you can probably see the ground's been churned up a bit. From an inter-row crop machine, it's fantastic. It's very easy and easy to operate, and you've got a bit of a weed that's away from the usual run of the thing. You can almost steer it with your arms. You need a wee bit of muscle power to do that, but I'll just let you see this. Takes that away, no bother at all. Obviously, if you were preparing a piece of ground to sow seeds in, you would probably run over it once or twice to get the respective tilth that you would need. I've been over this piece of ground once, just this bit here, and there is quite a good tilth coming at the moment. But the depth is not quite so deep as you might get because the tines on here are quite short, and occasionally there's a stone gets caught in there, and you've got to stop and just ease it out a bit. It's, as I say, it's highly versatile. It's beautiful and light, and it's great. Obviously, between the plants here, these are you have to get the hoe going, which has not been an easy business this year at all. But this for intercrop work will do hoeing or the rotavating to produce a nice tilth for you to sow seeds on in the springtime, which is great, you know, if you've carrot, turnip and leek, anything like that to put in. So that's it really. I mean, there's not a lot else one can really sort of say. It's as I said, it's very easy to lift up. It just needs a wee bit of muscle power. And even if you haven't had your porridge that morning, you'll still manage it all right. Amongst the dahlias, I think I'll just speak about one or two of the varieties here, because there are hundreds of varieties of dahlias to be had in the world, and I've only just recently got into dahlias within recent time, and every autumn I go to a very large nursery in England where they have a whole acre of dahlias and pick out the newest varieties which I feel are going to be winners for production here in Scotland. In point of fact, most of these dahlias are grown for church decoration. Also, I grow quite a few of them which I give to charities for raffle prizes, which a bowl of those for raffle prizes are always very welcome, because it makes such a change from the traditional bottle of wine or whiskey or a box of chocolates, and these are really very much sought after when the raffle starts. This is one of my favourite ones, and it's called Mary's Jomana. And Mary's Jomanda, and it's got lovely straight stems on it, and that is a plant, well, that's got half a dozen blooms on it at the moment, and there's quite a few to come, and that was planted out about the end of May in a 3-inch pot, quite a small plant. And considering the fact that the dahlias will normally be in flower in July, August and September, we get 3 months out of them, but this year we've only had 2 months out of them because there's been no sun to bring them on in the early stages. Now then, let me move on to let you see another very nice one. Orange there is a sort of water lily type of dahlia, and it's called Shep's Memory. Frankly, I don't know who Shep was, but it would be quite interesting if someone did know about it, and maybe they could get in touch with me through the video thing, and it would be interesting to know about that. But you can see how that plant has made all that growth and thrown a good number of buds on it. And if you're wanting to get a really nice one flower on top of a stem, when they get to that stage, quite a good idea to do a bit of disbudding on them. And what happens there is, at the axil of each leaf there's a little bud coming away, and you just nip that off, and the strength from that goes into the head of that flower there. It just makes it slightly more distinctive. This one is a topper, and this is called Rycroft's Delight. It's a really nice one. It came out about 2-3 years ago, and it's only just been released about two years ago for general cultivation. A lovely yellow with a slightly apricot-y centre on it. It's very nice too. That is I showed you Mary's Jomanda. This has come from the same source. This is called Jomanda on its own, and it's very nice, that, and I think it'll be with us for quite a few years. Here's quite a good yellow here, which I haven't quite made up my mind about whether I'm going to keep it going or not, called Lady Linda. The thing is that it doesn't seem to throw an awful lot of terribly strong stems, and an awful lot of side shoots seem to come out of it. But nevertheless, it's a nice clear yellow. It's a nice clear yellow. Now then, this is a new one here which I am not going to run on. It's a nice salmony cacti. It does throw a nice straight stem, very nice for church decoration or anything of that particular order. Let me see now, it's called Avoca Comanche, but I don't think I'm going to run this one on at the end of the season. This is a new one called Indian Summer. It's a red cacti, as you can see. This particular flower is only half open. It'll come to twice this size. I've got reasonably high hopes for this one because it's lovely and clean cut, and also it has a nice dark green foliage. and also when you come to disbud it, it seems to snap off very easily like that, allowing the full force of the sap to get into the main flower. So next year I'll have that plant turned into about half a dozen from some cuttings. Now then, this is another cacti variety which I've had for a number of years, and it's called Purple Gem, and it's I feel it's really very nice, and it would be very complementary in a bowl with some dark red one as well, and that's Purple Gem, and it's a good doer. You can see there's plenty of growth coming away on it. And this business of disbudding is a thing which you can do every week, because it's surprising how quickly the plants grow. It's absolutely amazing. Anyway, that's that one there. Now then, here's quite a nice colour. It's a strong colour, and it's called Amy Cave. And it's a particularly strong grower. I notice when I'm taking cuttings, they all seem to come away extra quickly one way or another. I think that's one I'll probably keep going for at least another season or two anyway. Now then, this is a new one for me this season, and it's called Corona Red. It's cacti, and I've got high hopes for this plant. I think it's got quite a future. It's got slightly tones of yellow in the centre once it opens out a wee bit further than that. It should be about twice that size, but there's a beautiful bloom on the petals there, and certainly quite an impressive growth on it, one way or another. Here we have the only dwarf pot Dahlia that I've got, and frankly I don't know how it's come to me. It's just come in somehow or another, but it's called Firepot, and I think for anybody wanting something for border use, this would be a good one. I think it's got a nice warm feel attaching to it, with fused with a bit of yellow in the centre and an apricot outside there. And as you can see, there are massive buds on it. I wouldn't attempt to disbud that at all, because I think it's better just left as it is to come away. This is a very nice unfading red. It's called Bladen Lady in Red, and it's quite well named. And once again it does very well, and lovely long straight stems, great for putting in a big vase for church decoration or anything of that particular order. Yes, that's a very nice red, that, and one or two plants of it here. Here we have a beautiful, clear, bright, cheerful yellow, and this is called Golden Sceptre. I've had this quite a number of years, and it seems to come away quite well. Strangely enough, for some reason or another, sometimes a plant will just produce nothing but single daisy-like flowers. There doesn't seem to be any explanation for that at all. But once again, it's got lovely straight stems on it, nice and stiff, and it takes the water up beautifully. And it goes without saying, of course, to get an extra day or two out of the dahlias once you put them into a vase, it's better to go to a local florist and get some what they call flower food. You get some flower food and put it into the bowl, it gives you an extra 2 or 3 days, which is quite useful to know about that. Anyway, I think that's just about the end of my very small selection here. I've only got about a dozen varieties here, but each year there's 1 or 2 get discarded. I feel they're not coming up to the standard that I'm trying to strive to get. Now then, I imagine you're probably wondering what happens when the frost comes. Good question. In point of fact, these all go down at the first frost, which will be any time in early part of October. And when that happens, the whole of the plant should be cut off, all this green, back to about 6 inches above the ground, when you'll be left with just a stump. And you dig that up with a fork very carefully, and you'll find underneath it, you'll be surprised to find it's grown quite a substantial tuber. Almost after the style of trying to lift potatoes, but the tuber is all in a one, and it's almost like a bunch of carrots all together. So you lift that up carefully, give it a wee bit of a shake, and put it somewhere totally frost-free for the winter months. And I don't mean putting it out in a garden shed that's quite well lined. You have to find the coolest place in your home and put them into, they'll go into a Hessian bag or into a box or something like that, and they don't have to be watered or touched all winter whatsoever. Just leave them be. Then in about Valentine's Day, which is always quite a nice thought, about the middle of February, bring them out from where they've been all winter and put them into boxes. I use wine boxes, and I line the wine box with a little bit of plastic, and I put probably about 6 of those tubers into a wine box, and I just cover them over with some peat or a compost of some sort or another, just something to retain some moisture on them. Then put them into somewhere as warm as you can afford to find a place at home. I suppose I'm particularly lucky in the sense that I live in a very old Victorian lodge, and it's got very wide window sills, about 18 inches wide. So I put the wine boxes in there, and I've got a wood burning stove, and I have a constant heat all the time, and after about a month in that situation, you'll find little shoots starting to come away. They just start coming away, just a little shoot or two, something similar to that, start coming away. And when those are about 4 inches long, you can cut them off from the mother plant and dip that into a hormone, which you can get from any of the garden shops or garden centres. And then you plunge that into a bed of sand, which it's a propagating bed, and it has to be lined with electric cable, which is all insulated, which creates a heat of something like about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So they're put into that sand, dibble them in, firm them, and leave them. And every day you've got to make sure that you get a fine spray, probably twice a day, in the morning and in the late afternoon. Spray that to try and keep the cutting turgid. And within about a month, it should, with a touch of luck, have rooted for you. You just put the dibble in and lift it carefully, and you've got some little roots coming out. You can then pot that up into a 3-inch pot, into a compost, into a general compost, and firm it up, and that'll come away. You can't plant it out until the very last week of May or the first week of June in Scotland. Then the new cycle will start. As I say, don't put them out before the very last week of May or the first week in June, certainly in Scotland, because they won't stand any frost whatsoever. And you'll find once you put them into the ground, they need to be going at least 3 feet apart. I put them nearly 6 feet between the rows to give me access for the rotavator. And they'll need a stake putting in them like that at some stage. Put a wee bit of string to support them in the early stages, and they'll come away. They don't need any spraying of any sort of insecticide, because nothing seems to bother them whatsoever. But what I would say is to keep them flowering, whatever you do, keep cutting them, keep cutting them. Don't be sort of feeling, oh, if I cut them it's going to wreck the plant. No, just keep on cutting them. And the harder you cut them, the more they come away from the bottom. Anyway, I think that's about all I can really say on these this afternoon. I hope you've managed to follow what I've been talking about, and thank you once again for having tuned in to my video on the Rotavator and the Dahlias, and that you'll get some pleasure from knowing about these lovely flowers. And I'll be in contact with you later on for something else to talk about on the gardening front. Thank you once again.